Mesopotamia was probably the first civilization and contributed many things to current countries. Mesopotamia is located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in present-day Iran. This area, called the Fertile Crescent, is great for growing crops, hence the name Fertile Crescent. The most important invention of the Mesopotamians was farming. Before farming, every person had to hunt for food or gather food to stay alive. When farming was discovered, people could begin to have free time and thus began to invent things to make their lives easier. One thing to mention would be that Mesopotamia did not necessarily invent farming. At the same time, at the Yellow River Valley and Indus Valley, modern India and China, they also began farming, but Mesopotamia was probably the first to begin farming. Even though farming was very profitable, Mesopotamians began to realize that it was a ton of work, so we decided to get animals to work instead of us, plowing land, giving us food, or helping us hunt. Eventually, as people began to have more and more possessions, people began to fight over who owned what.
Here is a small skit. Hey, that is my grain. Our grain.
With this, government was invented. At first, the government was basically an oligarchy or a religious monarchy. Most of Mesopotamia was ruled individually by a city-state's rulers. Boats were also made by Mesopotamians, as well as sails. These were probably a huge help to them for traveling huge distances or carrying very heavy things downstream. As people began traveling farther and farther, they needed to write down how they got there, and how to get home. To get help with that, they invented maps. Eventually, people began to combine their maps with other people's maps. Maps from this era were pretty laughable by today's mapping standards, but it was somewhat impressive for these people back then. Math was also invented by the Mesopotamians, probably to help them count how many coins they had or something similar. Speaking of money, currency was also invented by the Mesopotamians, although money wasn't the same back then. At first, they probably used tokens with stamps and printed them into the clay to pay workers, but eventually they invented shekels, which was basically a small metal coin with engraving on it, very similar to current coins. In total, the Mesopotamians gave a lot to current technology. Thanks, Mesopotamia.